On today's Locked On Texan podcast, Jackson State's wide receiver Malachi Wideman joins the show.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to a July 4th edition of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Now let's apply some pressure for today's podcast, as I am your Texans football analyst, John Some Sports Guy Hickman. Of course, I'm joined by none other than Texan beat reporter and Sports Illustrated's own Cody Davis, here to discuss how will the suspensions in the AFC South help the Houston Texans possibly win the AFC South. We have a one-on-one conversation with Jackson State's wide receiver Malachi Wideman, but we're going to start off today's show looking at the defensive line coaching expectations. And Cody, here's the thing about this D-line, man. Rod White, now I know y'all see the jersey right behind me, the UT jersey, but former University of Texas defensive tackle, but had some time to play in the NFL and coach as well. Rod White joined the Houston Texans as the assistant defensive line coach this offseason, coming in with 13 years of collegiate coaching experience. And it just seems like wherever he goes, he helps improve that defensive front. For Miami last year, he was the DN coach. They ranked 11th nationally in total sacks with 37 and sacks per game with 3.08, while also ranking 19 in the country in tackles for loss per game with 7. At East Carolina University, he was a D-line coach. Nate Harvey was named AAC Defensive Player of the Year, first team all-conference after posting 63 tackles, 25 and a half tackles for loss, and 14 and a half sacks, 4 quarterback hurries, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. But I think that when we look at the time that he spent with UTSA, broke the American Athletic Conference single game record for tackles for loss with 15 against Old Dominion. Also a league single season mark with 105 tackles for loss in 2018. How can we look at the addition of Rod White and consider that a bonus for the Houston Texans? And I look at it like this, guys. I like Coach Shazier, right? And I'm super glad that the Houston Texans brought him back to be the defensive line coach for the Houston Texans after they moved on from a few coaches in the offseason. I love that DeMeco Ryans came in and saw value in him because of what he was able to do and get out of Malik Collins last year. Jerry Hughes, who came in and had 9.5 sacks and led the team in sacks overall. And some of the smaller productions he was able to get from other players that might not have the talent of what the Texans have now. Will Anderson, a healthy John Grenard, which I'll get to him in a little bit. Sheldon Rankins, now you bring back Malik Collins, and then you look at kind of the backup guys. But with Rod White, again, he is a guy that has had success at the collegiate level for 13 years. Everywhere he goes, that defensive unit seems to be better. But what I like about him is he's going to be able to help the Will Anderson draft make a whole lot of more sense and get him acclimated to the league. And I also think that his presence alone will help Will Anderson learn different moves at the NFL level that he wasn't comfortable with or didn't showcase at the collegiate level, different moves now to be able to win more of these one-on-one matchups. Will Anderson is one of those guys that's going to bull rush you and overpower you. And in the NFL, at some point, you're going to have to mix it up. And I look at the addition of Rod White and I say to myself, he is a guy that I think can help Coach Shazier and DeMeco Ryans maximize the potential of Will Anderson. But I'm also looking at John Grenard, right? Like, this is an opportunity for the village helping raise a child, right? In a sense of it's just not going to be on the parent and Coach Caesar. It's not going to be on the grandparent of, we look at now, quote unquote, D'Amico Ryans. But now it's going to be on the uncle, the best friend that you grew up with that's been in your life for a long time, in the sense of an additional guy who is not that far removed from coaching at the college level just last year, but can help be the bridge to get some of those things closer and help John Grenard get more comfortable in his own game, right? I think he has a lot to improve on in terms of being a pass rusher, in terms of getting after the quarterback. And so the combination of Will Anderson, John Grenard, and we know what the Houston Texans have in Malik Collins and with the addition of Sheldon Rankins, but also Thomas Booker. Where does he play on this defensive front? The combination of Kurt Hennish and Roy Lopez, all of those guys, and now the rookie, Dylan Horton, the young guys, using a collegiate coach who at the college level, we know there is a lot of opportunity for defensive line units to get after the quarterback with the usage of how much they pass in college, but using his ability to teach them different ways to get consistently better to getting after the quarterback. I like what he can bring. I like his experience at the collegiate level, and I like that at every conference he's played in, going right back to last year in Miami, every guy under him, that unit totally has gotten better under his leadership.
And everything that you just said, John, I think you forgot one important factor about Coach Rod. And that's him coming from a team that only gave up an average of 103 yards on the ground in the rushing attack on the defensive side of the ball. Not going to spend too much time on this because, John, listeners and viewers, you already know how I feel about the Houston Texans defensive front. There's a lot of promise and potential there that we have seen over the last 2 seasons, especially when you consider the promise and potential we have seen from John Grenard. Of course, as we say here every time on this show, when we talk about Grenard, his number one thing is he has to stay healthy. However, when you bring in a guy like Coach Rod, who once again is coming from a team in Miami who has only given up 103 yards on the ground, you have your head coach and Coach D'Amico Ryans, who is coming from a team where with those
I hate to cut you off. I'm sorry. In 2021, 7 teams failed to gain 100 yards on the ground against the UTSA Roadrunners. So to your point, like he makes it a case in point to stop the run.
Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what the Houston Texans need, because when you go over the Texans defense over the last 2 seasons, which was surprisingly the best part of this team, and that's not really saying a lot for a team that gave up 150 yards on the ground in the rushing attack, but that was their Achilles heel. That was their weakest point on the defensive side of the ball, their inabilities to stop the run. Of course, you fix that by the talent that you bring in on that defensive front. However, it also goes back to the coaches. And I think with Coach Rod, along with Coach D'Amico Ryans, Matt Burke, we're definitely going to see the Houston Texans be able to stop the run, so they won't be in a situation where you're going through a season where you have 6 to 7 running backs that's going to rush for over 100. And we already know the damage that Derrick Henry did against this team. When he had like 4 or 5 consecutive games where he rushed for over 200 since 2020, that's definitely not going to happen no more for the Houston Texans starting in 2023.
Well, I'm not going to go as far as to say it's not going to happen, but
it better not happen. Let me just say that.
It shouldn't happen with the addition of the, Will Anderson, Sheldon Rankins, the talent that Houston brought in. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we are still banking on some of the guys that were here previously to stay healthy. Love with Rod White, as again, former UT guy, played on that Rose Bowl, that Vince Young Rose Bowl, but love what he can bring to this team. But we praised the signing of Shane Day and Bill Lazor because now you look at Bobby Sloyd and he has people he can lean on a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so for Coach Caesar, who we love, I think he's done a good job with what he's been given to work with. Now he also has somebody, and a younger person at that, to kind of lean on and bounce ideas off of to see how can this team get better at the defensive front. Like what are some things that Coach Caesar is not traditionally comfortable or hasn't utilized as a coach that maybe Coach Rod White would be able to come in and say, hey, you know what? In this day and age, this is how you can reach this player. Or these are some of the things that I have helped implement on my defensive lines that I've coached that's been successful for us. And let's see how much it'll work now for the Houston Texans at the NFL level. So I look at on the one side of the ball, you got a young OC that can lean on some of the older guys that's been in the league a little bit more experienced. But then on the defensive side of the ball, you have an older coach that can lean on a younger coach to find out different ways to reach some of these players and get them to be better at their game. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to make sure that you are 100% certain that you have the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Add your job and then add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to help spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. This is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivery quality versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to for faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this latest installment of Locked On Texans. And as promised, we got our guy, Mr. Malachi Wideman, a prospect who will be entering the supplemental NFL draft on July 11th. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know that's a big day for you. So let's jump right into it because a lot of our listeners might not know what the supplemental draft is. So can we start with you just sharing some details on what is that draft? And for you personally, as a prospect from Jackson State University, what does that draft mean to you personally? Because it gives prospects another opportunity to reach their goals and dreams of going to the NFL.
Yeah, for those who don't know, and thank you again for that wonderful, introduction. I appreciate that. But yeah, the NFL supplemental draft is, I guess, of course, a unique draft for those who fall into, a strict, but I guess detailed, description. You have to be selected, as far accepted, by the NFLPA to even be in the draft. So like, it is a good thing to know that I got accepted, and I'm moving forward as far as knowing the seriousness of how many teams of course are interested, and that has been interesting for sure, man.
Malachi, what can you share with us and the listeners and the viewers about your journey to the NFL supplemental draft? Because I remember I was told last week, and I shared this with our listeners and viewers, and I also had an opportunity to write about this over at Sports Illustrated as well, that 17 teams have showcased an interest in you. One of those teams are the Houston Texans, and hopefully I get an opportunity to meet you in person with training camp coming up in the next, let's say, 3 weeks. But can you tell us about your journey of how you got into the NFL supplemental draft?
I guess, with me not fully being eligible, and also missing out a lot of last season of me playing, due to me transferring, and if I would have transferred again, those types of deals that I would have been put in as far as eligibility wise, that first year and all that stuff after transferring, it was just a lot of things lining up for me to ultimately chase that big dream of mine, and that's to be in the NFL. I know I've played some pretty good ball in college, but my goal is to be able to play some really high level ball at the highest level. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm really striving for. That is one of my biggest goal, or one of my most favorite aspirations to chase, is to be one of the all time greats.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Speaking of an all-time great, you are a 6'5" wideout. What can you share on how your stature gives you an advantage on the gridiron, more so in the red zone? Because with you being 6'5", I'm pretty sure you come out victorious when it comes to those 50-50 balls.
Oh yeah. Most def. Those 50-50 balls, me and my quarterbacks and stuff that I've always had, we like to think of those as like 90-10, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
As long as we put it on the top shelf where the kids can't get it, that's easy for us, But as I've gotten older, the red zone has been so much easier for me because not only do they have to worry about the catch radius of the fade and all that, stuff like that. They have to worry about the slant, and they do have to worry about the inside breaking routes because that's something that I've been working on. That's something that I've been grooming myself to be able to do is make some of those catches across the middle and just making big catches in general. So
majority of the interest that a lot of teams have in you as of right now came from the 2021 campaign, where you recorded 34 catches for 540 yards and 12 touchdowns. Malachi, what can you share about that 2021 campaign?
That was definitely one of those campaigns for me that was, making the best out of my opportunities. I think that ended up playing into my, favor because, when you look at it like that from a wide receiver standpoint and you know that you're limited on catches and limited on targets and you know that you have to make the best out of whatever comes your way, you're going to fight for those extra yards. You're going to fight and concentrate maybe a little bit more on whatever ball comes your way. So, that ended up playing into my favor, that ended up ultimately making one out of every three of my catches nearly a touchdown.
Awesome. Sounds good. You played 2 seasons at Jackson State. What can you share about playing under former head coach Deion Sanders? How was that whole entire experience?
It was an experience second to none, man. There's so much love and respect for, Deion throughout the country, throughout Mississippi. Every day was a chance to grow and learn. It was always grow and learn. I definitely think that Coach Prime is one of the best to ever play the game. That was one of the biggest reasons why, I definitely came over and, decided to be part of his vision, as far as the football and basketball point, that has always been, also something that I was, really heavy on doing. And Coach Prime being a 2-sport athlete, at one of the highest levels, I definitely thought that was somebody who I should, learn from, be able to connect with, and it's definitely served me justice, even though that I know I missed a lot of the last season, Coach Prime still has a lot of love for me, I still have his number, still have him on, all my social media platforms, still, watch and cheers him on as he does great things at Colorado, but it's always been love,
I talked to several of Coach Prime's former players that was coming in this year's class and last year's class as well. And they always talked about, lessons that they was able to learn, because I don't think you can make a list of some of the greatest players that ever played this sport and your list will not include Deion Sanders. So with that being said, Malachi, what are some of the lessons that Coach Deion Sanders taught you that's actually going to help you on this next level?
Man, I would say the one that comes off, of course, to the top of the mind because it's the most recent would definitely be with that last season. With me sitting out, showing me that in a way everybody can be expendable, man. You have to take every opportunity for what it is. There were some things over the summer where unfortunately, with me transferring over from basketball to football, I missed some time away from the guys. Some of those other guys capitalized off their opportunity of, showing up every day. And, it was one of those situations where we went undefeated. A lot of people don't talk about that. We had a really, legit wide receiver room. We went undefeated, pretty much stomped our way through the whole season without really having a problem. So I was just like, a safety valve.
You mentioned several times 2-sport athlete is there anything that you were able to take from the basketball court that is actually helping you on the gridiron?
Of course, as far as with some of my wide receiver releases, to get past people, basketball, every now and then you need that first quick step, a first quick 2 steps, as far as targeting the balls, I see those as going up and getting rebounds sometimes, as far as getting those at the highest point so that nobody else gets them, There's definitely a lot of, basketball that translate over the football, Football, of course, you have to be a little bit more physical, throughout the game, but there's definitely a lot of intangibles for a wide receiver that you would love to have convert over from basketball to football. And definitely the leaping and, the hand-eye coordination and, the lateral, quickness and all that good stuff.
Sounds good. Last question before I let you go, Malachi. We are officially 7 days away from the NFL supplemental draft. What could be your last pitch for a team?
The best thing I could say, I am a competitor. I'm definitely all about winning. And I'm a dog, man. I'm a work. I don't like being at work, and I don't like somebody getting the best of me. So, with that being said, if you like winning, I guess come scoop me up.
Awesome. Sounds good, my guy. Malachi, really quick, where can our listeners follow you at on all your social media platforms?
You could follow me on Instagram, Mighty Mal 13. Twitter, same thing. Facebook, I guess. I'm not even really on Facebook that much. I'm not gonna lie. That's just to reconnect with some of my older family members that are too old school for some of the newer platforms. But that's where you can find me, man. That's where you can find me.
Awesome. Sounds good, Malachi. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today on Locked On Texans. Good luck, man. And if you get drafted by the Texans, I'm going to hit you up. I'm going to take you out to lunch or something to introduce you to Houston or something like that. We got to link up before training camp, my guy.
For real. I appreciate that for real, man. For sure.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that was Malachi Wideman, wide receiver for Jackson State University. Once again, shout out to our guy, praying and hoping nothing but the best for him. It's funny and ironic that we had an opportunity to talk to Malachi because, John, as you know, a lot of people, including you and I, talked about the lack of depth, the lack of talent that the Houston Texans have at their wide receiving core. And, bringing in a guy like him, somebody 6'5", red zone threat, red zone target, as you heard him just say, I really do believe that he will have an opportunity to really help the Houston Texans, especially considering that due to gambling issues, maybe your theory about whether or not the Houston Texans can win this division might become more realistic because boy.
My theory about the AFC South and the Houston Texans possibly being able to win this division, this was before any other suspensions. And so now you're looking at a couple of suspensions for the Tennessee Titans, a couple of suspensions for the Indianapolis Colts. You look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, who will have forget his name right off the top of my head. It's not Jawan Taylor. It's Jawan Taylor. Their tackle got suspended for PED use for the first 6 to 8 games of the season. So you're looking at a team that for Houston, you got Steven Nelson, but everybody else is pretty much intact. And it's funny, I tweeted the other day, for the first time in 3 seasons, there is no mess surrounding the Houston Texans. But then in one offseason, the Tennessee Titans got hit with suspensions due to gambling. The Colts kicked it all off with my man Kenny Clark, Kenny Rogers, one of those guys. He kicked it all off with the gambling. And then now you got the Jacksonville Jaguars and their suspensions issues. And so I think that when you look at the Houston Texans schedule, they kick it off with, Baltimore for game 1, but Indy game 2, Jacksonville game 3. So automatically, if they win those 2 games, that allows them to gain an edge on their opponents, of course. But down towards the end of the year, it may come down to those earlier games. And if they win those games, the opportunity for Houston to win the AFC South could possibly swing into their favor. So, again, I came into the offseason after everything was said and done with the draft, with free agency, and some of the additions that, are in Houston now. And I thought to myself, I don't fully believe in Jacksonville right now. If they show me another year, then I'll fully believe in that team. I believe in Trevor Lawrence, but I don't believe in the Colts. I don't believe in Tennessee. The suspensions and everything that's going on with all other three teams, this does allow Houston to kind of get an earlier advantage over two of the three division mates.
I get where you're going. I get your concerns. But I just don't think the Texans have a realistic chance to win this division, man, because I honestly think, I honestly do believe that it's going to come down between better quarterback play. And as of right now, Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback in this division. I think last year was just the start of a very special career for him and that organization. I know that might run some Texans fans hot, but Trevor Lawrence, you remember coming into the draft, he was a generational talent.
It's the truth.
I really believe that just a small taste of success is just what he needed in order to be the dominant quarterback in this division, at least for 2023.
Of Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, then you got Calvin Ridley, and I know he's going to come back with a lot of with just. Oh, and by the way, the AFC, they also got the NFC South this year, which means he's going to be playing against his former team.
Oh yeah.
So he's coming into the season with a lot to prove, and you gave him a number one wide receiver.
Due to gambling.
Which, by the way,
I'm with the players on this.
Houston Texans players, please listen to Coach D'Amico Ryans, because the last day of mandatory minicamp, I can't remember which reporter it was, but they asked him, how is he going to help and kind of like, I guess, teach his players not to gamble. He said simple, just don't do it. Texan players, as of right now, just don't do it. Don't gamble, plain and simple. But
if you do gamble, just have a burner account that your cousin, and not the Michael Vick type of cousins, but that your cousins or a close family member can monitor, and their name and information is on that app. Nothing tying to you. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. And I'm with the players on this. Why is it everybody else can make money off this but us? So, again, for Houston Texan players, don't do it. But if you do, it got to be like your best friend from college that, you still keep that person around because he has value in your life, but you don't want to put your name on something. Hey, man, I need you to create this account. Take the over on I'm going to go out there and have more than 5 catches.
That's terrible. Just listen to D'Amico. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Thank you guys for checking out today's episode of the Locked On Texan Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texan Podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and YouTube as well. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. And by the way, I don't know how long we're going to have Twitter left, so
boy,
I don't know.
we gotta come up. What's that new app that's coming that's similar to Twitter?
It's called Spill. Then they
something
have
like that
on Instagram,
Spuddle or something like that. I don't know, but we're gonna have to change this little birdie or something and just start promoting another way on social media.
It'll be dope if there was just an app strictly for people that cover sports, and so people can come and follow the Cody Davises of the world, the Ross Jacksons of the world, the Stephen A's of the world. And that app is for that. Now, that would be something I'd be okay paying a small monthly fee. But what Elon Musk is doing to Twitter right now, one of the greatest, if not, I consider the greatest app of all time, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. But follow us on Twitter while we're still here.
No, change that by the end of this week. But as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Follow me on something, but my handle will always be the same. And that's always going to be Cody Davis _24. That's COTYDAVIS _24. Why 24? Because Kobe Bryant is the GOAT. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.